Okay guys, welcome back to Key Knowledge 9 planning tools such as SWOT Analysis. Here is our study design and you can see we're nearly at the end of this outcome now. So planning analysis tools determining strengths and weaknesses of decisions regarding to changing internal factors such as SWOT analysis. So what is this all about? Look, you are planning on setting up a business, running a business. Pretty famous saying there, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what this all boils down to, okay? What do we mean by planning? What do we actually mean by that term? Working out how to do something, how we're going to achieve our desired goal, okay? We have a goal in mind. How are we actually going to get there? We need to plan our actions, our strategies. So in terms of a definition, this is a good definition of planning, and you might need this actually at various points in the course as well. Formalized process involves a series of decisions aimed at assisting a business to achieve its objective. So if you think about that, that absolutely makes sense. So in a business, if you don't plan right from the very start of even thinking about the concept of your business, the chances of failure are very high. So earlier on in the course, we looked at this, 20% of businesses, I think we said failed in the first year, 60% within the first 3 years, something like that. So basically what we're saying here is if you're going to plan your own business, there's a fair chance that this business is going to fail. But how you can absolutely minimize the chances of that happening is by going through this process, planning right from the outset, really thoroughly, really thinking about it. And I would suggest that when we're talking about 20% of businesses failing in the first 12 months and 60% in the first 3 years, whatever those figures are, I would suggest that the majority of those businesses had probably not done this very well. And if they had have done, then either they might have actually succeeded or maybe they wouldn't have even set up as a business in the first place. So first off, we're going to talk about levels or types of planning, okay? Things to get your head around. Basically, business owners or business managers, they need to make plans for the long term, kind of the medium term and the short term if they're going to be successful and achieve their objectives. Now, the way this generally works is that we start with long-term plans and goals, and everything kind of feeds back in from those to determine what we do in our business on a day-to-day basis. So let me kind of demonstrate to you what I mean by that. So let's start with our long-term, or it's sometimes called strategic planning. So long-term planning, strategic planning. What we're talking about here is planning ahead, generally sort of 2 to 5 years ahead. This is about making whole of business decisions and the long-term direction of the business. Excuse me. So a strategic plan looks at how the business intends to survive and be competitive in the long term. So strategic, long term. Okay, those two words kind of relate to one another. So as an example, if a business intends or it sets an objective of increasing its market share, the overall business strategy could be to produce a superior product to competitors and quality customer service. Okay. So then what happens? That's your long-term strategic plan. Then what happens is you put specific plans in place in the short and the medium term to ensure that you achieve that long-term objective. So that's how this works. And then we'll feed back from there. So our medium-term planning, also called tactical planning. So this now covers what we call the medium term, which is around the 1 to 2 year mark. And that involves planning our tactics and our strategies or our steps that are going to fit in and align with those long-term plans and objectives. Okay. So continuing on that previous example, if the strategy is to provide quality customer service in the long run, the tactical planning might involve identifying what that actually looks like for your business and then planning training programs for your staff to actually implement that strategy. Okay, so you can see we've started out with our long-term plan, which is quite broad, quality customer service. Then we're reining that in a bit in a medium term. So what does that look like and how are we going to do that? So essentially your tactical planning is setting out the tactics that make your long-term strategy happen. Okay. Then we move on to our short term. So this covers day-to-day decisions and actions, weekly, monthly, anything up to a year. So you can see there between the three types of planning, we're covering the whole scope of time. So this is all the real short-term stuff. So this is much more detailed planning. And it's about putting in place daily and short-term activities and actions which are going to support those mid and long-term objectives. So again, using the same example, the customer service. So we've said our medium-term strategies are to, identify what the training or what the quality customer service looks like and maybe implement some training programs. So now the short term of the operational part of that is actually putting the employees through those training programs aimed at delivering what we have determined to be what quality customer service looks like, to meet our long-term objective of increasing or improving our customer service that then will hopefully help us achieve our long-term aim of increasing market share. So hopefully you can see how that works. We start with the long term and then it kind of all feeds back. So everything that we do in our business has to have a reason for it. And those reasons ultimately stem from the long-term goals and objectives that we've set for ourselves in the business, and it just all feeds back from there. Okay, so SWOT analysis. So this was mentioned as a particular tool in the study design. So we need to look at this, and this is actually a really, really useful business tool. And this is something that absolutely is used in businesses. I've used this myself, or been part of teams that have used this many times over the years in the different businesses that I worked in. The way this would pan out, we'll have all the managers get together for a day or a couple of days even. And the focus of that would actually be to carry out a SWOT analysis of the business. Okay, so all the managers to get lots of different opinions, and we would carry out a SWOT analysis, and that would then actually form part of the future planning for the business. Whatever we uncovered through this SWOT analysis would then be used to plan for the future. Okay, so a SWOT analysis, looks like there's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the idea of carrying out a SWOT analysis, what you're trying to do is identifying the internal strengths and weaknesses of your business. The word internal is key. And then once you've done that, you try to work out if there are any external opportunities or threats that may be present. So internal, you're looking at the business itself. You're looking internally at the business. What are we good at? What are our strengths? What are we good at? What do we need to continue doing? Weaknesses, what are the areas where we maybe need to improve? But then when we shift our focus to the external opportunity threats, you're now looking outside of the business at things that could potentially impact the business. You do this, and at the end of this process, it kind of lets you know, it gives you more of an idea about how the business is currently positioned in the market. And then, like I said before, it helps you to plan for the future. So strengths, things that your business is good at, areas in which it is strong, things that separate you from your competitors, things that you want to continue to do well. So it's just some generic examples that once you've done your SWOT analysis, these are things that you might come up with. So you've looked at your business, you might come up in your list of strengths. We have a great high quality product or service, particularly in relation to our competitors. We have a really, really good product out there. You might have come up with the idea that you have a really strong, skilled, experienced, and well-motivated workforce. That's an absolute bonus to a business. So that could be one of your key strengths, your workforce, your employees. You might have a really strong reputation as a brand. You're in a strong financial position. You have a positive corporate culture, strong management team. You're using the latest technologies within the business. You have a stable workforce. That's key as well. When you're running a business, one of the most frustrating things and things that cost you money is constantly having people, leaving and entering the business, like having people leave and having to replace them. Having a stable workforce is a real strength. So these are kind of some generic things that you might identify as strengths within your business. Then you're moving on to your weaknesses. So these are the things, your business is not so good at, okay? So you need to really honestly self-reflect here. There's no point in doing a SWOT analysis if we're just going to kind of pretend we're great at everything. This does require some real honest reflection of the business, because, if you don't identify the weaknesses, what are you going to improve? So where are we lacking? Where are we weak? What are the things that our competitors do better than us? What are the things that we want to change or improve? Okay, that's the focus for our weaknesses. And once again, here's some examples that you might come up with. There are some weaknesses with your product or your service. You've identified that there are competitors out there that are just offering fundamentally a better product or service than you are. You might identify that you have an unskilled, poorly trained and unmotivated staff. That's going to be a problem for you. You really need to work on that. You have a weak reputation as a brand, for whatever reason that might be. Negative corporate culture, a weak, inexperienced management team, using outdated technologies that your competitors are using latest technologies, you're using outdated stuff. You have a high level of staff turnover. Like I mentioned before, that's the flip. If you don't have a stable workforce, you have a high level of staff turnover. That's a really bad thing in business, because it interrupts business, and there's a cost to constantly having to recruit people to replace those that are leaving. Then, like I said, the shift moves on to the external environment. So now we've analysed our own business. Now we shift our focus in terms of our analysis to what's going on outside of our business. So opportunities now, what we're looking for here are any situations in the external environment outside of the business that we as a business could potentially take advantage of. So again, some examples just to help you understand. Are there any new and changing customer needs that's happening in society with your customer base? Are there new products and services being developed to meet them? Is this something you could kind of capitalize on, get in there early? Is there the opportunity to expand to new markets, new locations? Now, they could be, different state within Australia, overseas. If you think you've, pretty much done as well you can in the local market, is this something you could replicate further afield? Is the economy changing? Government policy, is that changing? Is the law changing in a way that would allow you to make some favourable changes to your business to capitalise on that and create business opportunities? New and emerging technologies. Is there technology that's being developed that is going to allow you to maybe run your business more efficiently, more effectively, or maybe access customers more quickly and easily? Anything like that. Potential press media coverage of your business and industry. So is there anything going on in a broader industry context that, again, you could capitalize on and kind of jump on that bandwagon and create into a business opportunity for your business? Now, the flip of that is the threats. So are there any situations in the external environment that could be potentially damaging or somehow negatively impact your business and that you want to avoid? So the idea is here you identify these potential threats and come up with ways to avoid them so that they don't negatively impact your business. So are there new competitors entering the market? When you're running a business, you want to be always aware of the competitors, what's going on with the competitors. And ideally, if there's new competitors coming in, that could be a real threat to your business. Existing competitors improving their performance or their reputation. They come out with better pricing strategies than you, and they come out with better promotion strategies than you. So again, constantly looking at what the competition is doing. Changes in customer tastes and preferences. Is your business something which is maybe becoming a bit outdated or maybe irrelevant in society? Do you need to change things up so that you remain relevant to potential customer base? Again, new and emerging technologies. A lot of these things can pose an opportunity or a threat, but is there a threat of new and emerging technologies that perhaps you've identified that you maybe can't even afford to get involved in? So is that going to be a threat to your business, and how are you going to combat that? Is there a potential shortage of available resources? Remember, resources, labour, raw materials, and supplies. So, for labour, for example, if the unemployment rate in the country is very low, that means most people have a job. There's less people looking for jobs. If you're looking to expand is that going to be a limiting factor to you? Are you going to be able to find enough people to kind of help build your business and grow it to where you want it to be? Change in economic conditions, government policy, legislation. Again, we talked about that as an opportunity, but as a threat, if we look at where we're sitting today in December 2023, over the last year and a half, interest rates have been going kind of crazy and increasing. We now have higher interest rates than we've had for many, many years. If your business, and what that means is basically a lot of people, and also that kind of ties in as well to the cost of living. At the moment, there's a lot in the media about the cost of living crisis. Everything's more expensive. So basically what it means is a lot of people out there at the moment, life is costing them a lot more than it was a year or two ago. Now, if your business is in providing some kind of luxury service or product, very often when people are facing cost of living issues, the first thing that goes is potentially those luxuries that you're providing. So is that going to be a threat to your business? If interest rates continue to rise and you're selling some kind of, like to have rather than must have type product or service, is that going to impact your ability to sell if interest rates continue to rise? So things like this. Changes in the situation with your premises. So if you are renting and the landlord is going to increase the rent, or maybe the landlord is selling the premises and you need to vacate them. Again, this is all outside of the business, it's external to your business, but these are things you need to be aware of and on top of so that you can deal with them as quickly as possible so that they don't impact your business negatively. Look, just a couple of examples of SWOT analysis, just to kind of put some reality around that. Okay, so Coca-Cola, okay, this is a real basic SWOT analysis that has been done. So if you look at the strengths of Coca-Cola as a business, okay, they have a variety of products across a range of different categories, over 500. They have a 43% market share in the soft drink industry, so they're absolutely a market leader. That's a strength. A brand value globally of over $30 billion, huge strength. Secret recipes for their products. Some of the weaknesses that you could identify, difficult to keep up with the health industry. Bear in mind, the original lineup of, or Coca-Cola itself, and most of the original products were, basically not healthy. We've identified that these are drinks that you don't want to be drinking a lot of. That's a challenge if your business is based solely on that type of product. It's one of the reasons that Coca-Cola have actually expanded their product line to move into kind of that healthy drink industry. Difficulty in finding a better substitute for sugar because, sugar now is the massive enemy. And we all know now that we should not be consuming too much sugar. Difficulty in changing customer attitudes towards the company. So even though Coca-Cola have identified that they've made this shift into the more like healthy drinks market, still people identify Coca-Cola with the original drink Coke, and there's maybe negative connotations about that because it's now perceived to be so unhealthy. So opportunities that they've identified, they can increase their market share if they follow the current trends towards more healthy drinks, and relatively few competitors in the market, certainly of their size and scope anyway. Threats, companies offering these healthy alternatives to their products because of the way that society is moving, and negative media coverage that can harm the business's reputation. And really that's anything to do with, diet and, sugar, all of that stuff, because they have such a strong association with that type of product. So hopefully there you can see how this SWOT analysis can play. And this is obviously it's a huge business. This is just a real basic version of a SWOT just to give you kind of an idea. Now, Zara as well, another example for Zara. I don't know if you're aware of who Zara is. Zara is a business that moved to Australia a couple of years ago, but it's been around in other nations for many, many years. So you can see Spanish business founded 1975. Basically, it's men's, women's and kids clothing, but they also sell some homewares in Europe as well. Target market is mainly 18 to 35 kind of age group. 2,300 locations in 96 countries. So that gives you some idea of the scope. This is a huge, huge business. Came to Australia in 2011, and now they operate in 2022 around 20 stores. Revenues in excess of $18 billion as of about 5 years ago. Now, one of the unique things about this business is that it takes them just 1 week to design a product and get it out to all 2,300 stores. No idea how they do that. That is phenomenal. And that's compared to most other similar businesses, it takes them 6 months. So if you think about the nature of fashion, trends change. So one of their absolute strengths as a business is the ability to pick up on a change in trends, come up with a design and get it out across 2,300 stores, 96 countries inside of 7 days. That is ridiculous. How they do it, I don't know, but that's what makes them, or one of the things that makes them unique. So looking at their SWOT analysis, strengths, highly efficient manufacturing and distribution. I mean, obviously, to be able to get to that 7 days, from design to being in stores, obviously they have hugely efficient manufacturing and distribution processes going on to be able to do that. Strong global presence as a strength, competitive pricing, they're kind of fast fashion, sort of relatively low prices for what you get, I guess. And this fast reaction to new and emerging trends, which we just talked about. Some of their weaknesses, zero advertising policy. I actually didn't know this, but apparently they don't advertise, so that they focus, or that their money goes on opening new stores instead of marketing. Limited product stock, so they don't have huge amounts of stock kind of sat in reserve. I guess what that means is if something runs out, it runs out. And then it's gone. They can no longer sell that. And that's probably limited into this highly efficient manufacturing and distribution and the fact that they can get products out so quickly. Also, another weakness, but this applies to most businesses in their industry, is the corporate social responsibility controversies that have hit that industry many times over the years. So things around child labour and paying under minimum wage, that sort of stuff, using sweatshops in Asia, that type of thing. So that's something that's been impacting this industry. But this business has also particularly been hit, and that's something that you have to deal with as well. Opportunities they've identified, there's a growing demand for affordable high fashion. I think we probably agree with that. Increase in fast fashion, this idea of fairly cheap but accessible fashion, and that people don't keep for very long. The cost, the quality doesn't have to be huge because people are not planning on wearing this stuff for years. And also the global clothing market is actually growing 5 to 6% per year, which is actually a pretty high growth rate considering it's, clothing. This isn't a new industry. This is a very old industry. To be growing at that rate at this stage in the industry's maturity is actually pretty quick. So again, that's something they're capitalizing on. Threats, growing competition of online providers. I think that would be a threat to almost anybody that operates in retail. Now, Zara, obviously, one of the ways they combat that threat is also by operating online themselves. And that's what this is all about. This is the idea. You identify your threats and you come up with strategies to counter them, to combat them. So that would be one way to combat that. Increased costs of production and raw materials. Maybe they've identified that actually their supplies are becoming more expensive. I don't know why. And legal political regulation. This is probably more to do with the number of different countries that they operate in, but also the type of countries that their suppliers are based in. Regulations are tightening up in some of those developing nations where they're getting their supplies from, which could also probably then lead into the increasing costs of production and raw materials as well. So those things are probably interlinked. But again, you can see how this SWOT analysis kind of plays out, looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the business and then what's the opportunities and threats out there that may impact us in the future. And that is it for that video, guys. So you've understand now what we mean by planning, the different levels of planning and kind of how they relate or link to one another, and then how this SWOT analysis can be used to plan for the future. That's it, guys. I will see you in the next video for Key Knowledge 10. Cheers for now.